Perhaps the biggest story that has been told of people who failed to take opportunity is the story of Nokia. And it's been rumored, maybe we've seen across the social media circles over and over again, a speech written and spoken by the former Nokia CEO saying that we did not do anything wrong. But the fact of the matter is that it is very easy to look at Nokia and point fingers and start laughing, but then the other fingers are pointing right back at us. We are at the cusp of an opportunity in life where we're entering a massive decade, and I've told you that this decade is for personal revolution. I heard someone saying this morning that many people are complaining about the White House and yet their own houses are in disarray. In today's podcast, I want us to discuss how we can harness the opportunity at hand today, especially in the new year and in the new decade, so that we can position ourselves strategically to have a revolution in this decade between 2020 and 2030. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Life Signatures podcast with Lawrence Namale. Lawrence is a life coach, author, and keynote speaker who loves to tackle different topics on purpose, productivity, and resilience. His mission in life is to awaken all your boundless possibilities available in you. Life Signatures podcast is dedicated to bring to reality every single person who knows that deep down in their gut, there's got to be more to life than this. And now, here is your host, Lawrence Namale.
Let me help you to bring this whole detail of the new decade into perspective. See, if you had a child today who is in primary school, by the close of this decade, that child will be in high school. If you have a child who is in high school, by the close of this decade, that child might be married and might be having their own family. It is that big. In other words, we are looking at an unprecedented opportunity available for us. And the problem, my friends, is that it is so easy to celebrate the new year and just be steeped into the new year and be blinded of the bigger things that are lying ahead for us in the new decade. It is so easy to be steeped into status quo and into tradition. In fact, the greatest impediment of success and prosperity, it is always going to be obedience to the status quo. Of course, status quo has its part to play in our lives. But you see, what worked yesterday is not necessarily what is going to work today. For example, this is a new decade. And psychologically, it's supposed to stir us up to a different kind of thinking. It is a bad day if we go into this new decade with the same kind of thinking that we had in the previous decade. In other words, the sun has just gone round, or the earth has just gone round the sun once. No big deal. It is going to do the same thing again. But you see, if we're looking at it from a different angle, from an enlightened angle, we realize that we have entered a dispensation, a new dispensation, and it gives us an opportunity to reevaluate our lives in terms of where our lives are going to go, what we are going to do, the things that we are going to make happen, and so on and so forth. The world itself, in technological circles, is going to experience massive shifts. Massive things are going to be happening. Electric cars are going to be all over the place. By the close of the decade, it will be a common thing for people to drive electrical cars. By the close of the decade, it's going to be a common thing for people to have Internet of Things in their houses, telling your fridge to do things through Alexa. I'm telling telling you, it's gonna be happening. No big deal about it. We are on the cusp of it. But you see, we should not be left behind as individuals to get into the fray of having a personal revolution in this new decade. So look at the possibilities that are lying ahead. Look at the opportunity we have. Look at the critical moment that we are standing at. We are standing at the precipice of personal revolutions if we recognize that fact. The problem is that we can stoop low and we can keep doing the things that we've always been doing, the same we've always been doing, not noticing the opportunity that has presented itself for us to think bigger, to think better, to think more, to think higher, to look at the nucleus of our own revolutions being our own hearts and our own heads, and planning and making ourselves available for it. It is there. It is today. It is 2020. And I'm saying that in this podcast today, in this episode today, let us grasp the opportunity and let us do away with status quo. It is easy to celebrate the new year and say, hey, the new year has come and so on, and we have fireworks and we high five one another, we've crossed over and so on and so forth, but then revert back to the same old behaviors of last year, or maybe the same old behaviors of last decade. This podcast goes to all those of us who are dissatisfied with the status quo. We know we can be more. We know we can be better. We know we were created to be lions, and yet we've been existing like little hairs all around. We know that there is much more that we can do. We know that we are laden with potential, and we haven't even started to excavate 1/3 of that potential. This message goes to all of us who are dissatisfied and have this holy discontentment of the status quo, knowing that we can be better, we can be more, we can do more, we can go more, we can dare much more. There's a guy who said far much better it is to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, even though shaken by failure, than to take rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy nor suffer much, because they live in the great twilight that neither knows victory nor defeat. He says that it is far much better to dare mighty things, and we have this opportunity in this cusp of the advent of a new decade to think big. See where we think, where our thoughts are going to go, what we are going to download in this moment, in this January, what we're going to download for the decade is probably what is going to follow. Probably we're going to get a canvas through which we're going to paint our lives in these planning and strategizing sessions that I am encouraging you to have at a personal level. This decade is going to be taken by those guys who are alert, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and who are look at a guy who is tuning the radio. You have a transistor radio and you're maybe checking in the channels, tuning in the radio to the particular frequencies, and I can tell you that there are very many frequencies that are going on in this new decade, and it is up to us to tune and align our lives to a particular frequency that is going to help us, of particular frequencies that are going to help us to have a life of a revolution in this decade between 2020 and 2030. This should be the greatest years of our lives, and that goes regardless of what we are facing in our lives at this moment in time. Probably what we want to do does not have any backing in terms of resources, in terms of finances, in terms of personnel. Probably what you are facing at the moment in time right now, even as you listen to me, is impossibilities. In fact, maybe you are in debt, maybe you have no clue, and you are steeped into this horrific fear that is actually paralyzing you, and you do not know how you're going to get out of it. You are kind of in a slump and you are paralyzed, and you do not want to think, because even thinking is a big job. It's big work, and you're thinking that this thinking is even hazardous to you because it's causing you to have hope hope which you have no clue if you're going to have it materialize. I am telling you, you've got to believe this, that we are on the cusp of a personal revolution if we handle it well. Well, the thing that we need to do is to be dissatisfied with the status quo, to say no to the status quo. Yes, the past 10 years, God thank you for them and so on, but the next 10 years I'm drawing a line in the sand and I'm making a decision that is going to be the best in every area of my life, in my mind, in my finances, in my relationships, in my family, in my business. See, if you start tuning those areas of your life to get aligned, to have a revolution in your life, then of course you are getting aligned and you're inviting these things to happen. But you see, it is so easy, like I've said, to continue having the same kind of thoughts that we had last year, the same kind of thoughts that we had in the past decade, and think that we are going to have a different kind of a decade. Chances are that it's going to be the same or it's going to be worse if we are not careful, because the world is moving at a very fast pace, at an unprecedented pace. And so our lives should also align, and we should take advantage of what is happening in the technological development world, and maybe also see the possibility of our own individual lives operating in such a manner. And in this podcast, all the way from episode number 201, I have been talking about strategizing, strategically positioning ourselves to have a revolution in this coming decade. In today's podcast, what I'm insisting is this: we have got to change our thinking. We started by saying that we need not to rush. And we started by saying that if you're given 4 hours to chop down a tree, if you're given 6 hours to chop down a tree, use the 4 hours to sharpen your axe. And so I'm talking about having clarity. That's why in podcast number 202, I shared and told you the same thing I'm saying today. Have hope that this can be better and greater than you've ever experienced in your life. And then we said, look at the opportunity that death gives in your life and position yourself to think of people reading and celebrating your life having come to a full end, a full maturity of life. What do you want people to say? That way you're opening your mind, and you're opening your positions, and you're opening your thinking, and you're opening your heart and your spirit into welcoming the greatness that is yet to come in your life. It is so easy to continue living your life the way you lived in the past several years. But if you start thinking this way, things start changing to align you to greatness. And then we share that we need to have some kind of foundation in terms of your values. If you don't have any values that you're following, you do have those values. The thing is that you have not clarified them. You've not written them down. But you can do that if you go through the internet and look for value tests and so on and so forth, and you can come up with a foundation through which the rest of your life is going to be identified. In fact, everything that you're going to do should espouse the values that you do cherish greatly. And yesterday we shared and we said that you need to find some direction that you're going to take, because life is available for us in myriads of ways. Life is available, options are available for us, unlimited options. But we are going to be successful to the degree that we get clarity of what direction we are going to take. Is this decade or is this year going to be your year of restoration? Is this going to be your year of risk-taking and daring? Is this going to be a year of creating things? Is this going to be a year of reconciling with your family? Get some kind of theme, some kind of direction that you want to take. If you're going to have a successful revolution in your life this year, get a direction. Get at least one. And in fact, don't get so many things. Don't get so focused on very many things. Narrow down on a few. I would even say not more than 3 things. If you're going to focus on developing your public speaking, that is one thing. throw everything you have in this life, in this year, at that one thing and give it time through patience. And I'm telling you, watch, the greatest thing you're going to do in this year and in this decade is to be focused. See, revolutions, they don't happen in days. They happen, especially personal revolutions, they do happen in decades. They take years to happen. So don't get involved in something that you're not going to give you at least minimum 3 years. That's why this new decade is going to be a decade of you having a revolution. So I'm inviting you to take as much time as possible to zero down on something that you must focus on and give it your absolute best. And today in the podcast, I'm sharing and I'm telling you, look at your life and review, and don't be the same guy of yesterday. It is easy to throw the champagne bottles up in the air and, charge our glasses and have fireworks and celebrate the crossover. But it is absolutely nothing if we're going to do the same things that we used to do, especially if we know that those things are not the very best. So I'm asking us today, even as I come to a close of this episode, I am asking us today to identify those things that we hate, those things that are in our systems and in our traditions and in our cultures. Someone say that culture eats strategy for breakfast. In other words, I can be telling you about goal setting and all those things, but as long as you have a culture, a system that you are unconsciously operating through, chances are that the revolution I'm talking about is not gonna come. The revolution begins with a change of systems. It begins with not a change of a few things. It begins with change of the core. What is the core of your life? When you wake up in the morning, what are the things that you're going to do? If they're the same things that you used to do, then there is no revolution. The same intensity you used to give, then there is no revolution. The same focus you used to give, then there is no revolution. There's got to be a change at the core of the system through which you're operating. How the system that you're operating in your life at the moment are looked at from the way you spend your time. How much time do you spend in distractions? How much time do you spend in development? How much time do you spend in clarity of purpose? How much time do you spend in growing others? How much time do you spend in becoming the best version of yourself? That is how the system is supposed to be structured. So I'm inviting you to look at your system, and I'm going to give you a simple idea how this can be done. It is simply this: have a personal timetable. That is where your system in life is, because a timetable means intention. It means direction. It means focus. It means energy. It means urgency. Without that, then the system that you've been operating at is the same, and that cannot guarantee you any kind of revolution. Cancel the status quo if it's not serving you. Cancel the status quo and start installation of a new system through which your life is going to operate. Take some time and install this system before you can change. You can change anything in your life. You've got to change the core. The roots have got to change. If your roots are in salty water, the fruits are going to be salty. If they are in good waters, then the fruits are going to be good. You get my point? So let us change the systems through which we are operating. And I'm going to discuss further tomorrow how exactly this can be done. But I want you to start thinking, and I want you to start reflecting and thinking of the kind of status quo, the kind of culture, personal tradition that you've been operating at. That is what is responsible for what you have or what you do not have. That is what is responsible for what is going to happen or what is not going to happen. It comes down to the structure and the systems that you have in your place, and these are going to be dictated by how you are using your time. So your assignment is absolutely simple. Every one of us born of a woman can do this. I need you to have an installation of a new system which behaves like this. Every single week, when the week begins or when the week ends, not only are you reviewing what you have done, but you are making sure that every single minute of your day is allocated to something that you are doing, something that is progressive. There are very many things that I'm going to share with you tomorrow, but today I'm sharing with you and telling you, make sure you do have a timetable, make sure you do have a calendar, the contents of which I will share with you in the episode that is following. But make sure you're having your mind set to be a productive human being. You are a production center, if you will. And this world is going to be influenced by your productivity one way or another. But your productivity is supposed to come just like effortless as a tree produces fruit. As effortless as fruits are produced, that is as effortless as we are supposed to be producing. But that effortlessness comes when we have an unconscious system in place. And that system is your usage of your time. The greatest thing we will do in this decade to involve and invite a revolution, it is the use of our time. Don't just wake up tomorrow and the same way you woke up yesterday and last year. Have some kind of direction, some kind of urgency. Have every minute of your day documented how it is going to be used, including the fun. Schedule your fun, because all the other things, life has a way of scheduling them for you. Well, I hope this is going to help you awaken even as we are boldly entering into this brand new decade. Thank you for listening. Until tomorrow. Bye-bye. A special shout out to my mentor Jeffrey Howard of Visionary Business University, found at mastermindmentor.com, who has graciously provided me with the soundtrack and the introductory track to this podcast. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for listening to Life Signatures Radio. If you enjoyed today's show, subscribe to Life Signatures Radio on iTunes, Stitcher, or visit our website at lifesignatures.libsyn.com. Life Signatures Radio, fresh, clean, and inspiring.